I'm Jack Wagoner, and this is the Grateful Podcast. Today's guest is Hala Taha, the CEO of YAP Media and host of the Top 100 Young and Profiting podcast. She's been featured on the cover of Podcast Magazine, named to 40 Under 40, and seen in the New York Times, Founder, and Radiolink. Her company was voted the best podcast agency and fastest growing podcast agency of 2022. If you enjoy the show, make sure to go down in the description and see how you can help the Grateful Podcast continue to grow bigger. Hala Taha, welcome to the Grateful Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jack. I'm excited for this conversation.
I'm so excited that you're here. Diving into your story, one of the things that I found the most interesting and a pattern that I've found across many of the very successful guests that I've interviewed is that you turned what was your worst moment into all of the success that you have right now. To be a little more specific, 2020 you've said was your worst year. And yet at the end of 2020, you made it into your best year yet. You made it to be the catalyst for all of the amazing growth that you've had to this point and even are going to continue to grow upon. So talk to me about what 2020 looked like for you and how you were able to turn something that was so tragic into something so amazing.
What a good first question. So 2020, I remember start of the year is when COVID started bubbling up, right? And by March, COVID actually became a thing. And I remember the offices, I was working at Disney at the time, and they had just shut down. And literally the same day that the offices shut down, my sister calls me up. I was living in Brooklyn at the time, no car. I was living with my boyfriend. She calls me up. She says, Mom, Dad, your aunt, uncle, and your brother have COVID. My sister's a doctor. And she's like, you've got 30 minutes to pack up your bags if you want to come. I'm going. Are you coming? And I was like, I guess so. Of course I'm going to come and help everyone, you know? So I remember she picked me up and she brought hazmat suits. I don't know if you know what that is. It's like coverings where like you cover your whole face, your body. Because at that time, COVID was so scary. Like it was the scariest strain. Everyone was dying. The hospitals were packed. It was like mortifying. So I'm like, okay, like I'm literally going home. I don't know if I'm going to survive or not. I get home. Everyone is extremely sick. Me and my sister end up going to the basement and like kind of making that our place to sleep and stay and eat. And we're eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for like 2 weeks. And we'd go upstairs and help everybody and cook or whatever. And it was so crazy, but everybody ended up starting to get better except for my dad. So my dad just got sicker and sicker, and we were trying everything. All my siblings are doctors, so we were trying everything. And at a certain point, we had to send him to the hospital. And I remember my dad looking at me and saying, Hala, like, if you guys send me to the hospital, like, I'm never coming back. And there was a certain point where like we thought that was the only way we could save him. Like we couldn't do anything anymore. So we sent him to the hospital, and he was right. It was the last time that we ever really got to see him even in person. In the hospitals, they weren't letting us visit because it was COVID. So I remember being at my Disney job, working remotely, having my dad on Zoom, and like in between my calls, I would like sing to him and talk to him, and he was pretty much totally out of it at this point. And so it was just so crazy. He was so sick, and he ended up passing away May 15th. So he's in the hospital for almost 2 months. And during the time that I was home, I got COVID. And during that time, because I got COVID, nobody wanted to hang out with me. None of my best friends, my boyfriend, even at the time that I was with for 10 years, like I had the cooties because I had COVID, right? And it was really, really crazy at that time. So I didn't hang out with anyone, but it gave me a lot of free time to think. And there was one woman who was very supportive of me. Her name is Heather Monahan. And she was somebody who came on my podcast. And essentially, she didn't leave me alone. She was like, Hala, I love your videos. She was asking me how to make these videos. And so I was trying to train her. And she's a very busy woman. So she's like, Hala, I'm not going to make these videos. Like, I want you to do it for me. And I showed her, I had a team of 20 volunteers at the time. I showed her my Slack channel. I showed her all my processes. And she was like, I just had a call with VaynerMedia. I can give them my money, or I could give you my money, and I want you I want to be your first client. So I decided I was going to start this thing called YAP Media, a social media agency with Heather Monahan as my first client. And I did that while my dad was in the hospital. I started this company. And then my second, so she was paying me very little. She was paying me like $1,000 a month to do her videos. But then my second client was a billionaire, and he started paying me $30,000 a month to run his LinkedIn, his Instagram, and his podcast. So everything changed at that point.
Wow.
And things just started accelerating. I got like one client after another because my podcast was essentially a lead gen tool. The guests that would come on my show wanted to grow their LinkedIn, wanted to grow their podcast. Those were my services. And so I just kept selling. And then 6 months later, quit my job, got on the cover of Podcast Magazine because I was able to kind of reinvest in my show and build it really big on like all these different apps. And it ended up being my best year yet because I achieved my dream of being a top 100 podcaster by the end of that year.
That's incredible. That is incredible. So what did you need to go through on the inside in order to make that shift? Because the way I like to think about it, I call this the Grateful Podcast, and that is a real form of gratitude to be able to turn something like that into what you turned it into. So talk me through the journey that you went through, not only on the outside, we just heard that, but what was happening in here? Because I think that must have had to be really powerful, really difficult, but really transformative.
Yeah. Basically, I saw my dad on his deathbed, and my dad's Palestinian. He grew up extremely poor. He grew up in like one room with, 8 people, no running water, no electricity. And he grew up in Palestine in war, basically, like at the start of all this stuff that we're hearing about now, right? And essentially, he knew that the only way that he could get out of town is to be the smartest kid in school and get a scholarship. And so all he did was just study and study and study. He ended up getting a scholarship, going to med school, becoming a surgeon, going to America, being chief of surgery at 2 hospitals, opening up a medical center. And he was so successful. And to me, I knew that like he had dedicated his life to make sure that his kids would never suffer, never be hungry, have everything that they need. And he was such a generous man. He gave all his money away to charity to send other kids to college. That was his passion. And so when he was on his deathbed, I was like, I'm playing too small. I've been, so privileged. I wasn't extremely spoiled growing up, but I've been so privileged. And I have an opportunity to like continue my family's legacy and to like 10x what my dad did. And here I am working this corporate job, doing this podcast. It's not like I wasn't ambitious. I was like you, doing a podcast on the side and this and that. But I was like, I need to play bigger. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be my own boss. And I feel like this is the universe. I just started deciding to just trust my gut and go with the flow. And it just led to so many powerful things. And so to your point, a lot of it was like gratitude for my father and everything that he did for us. And how can I make sure that I continue on this legacy and not play small?
Your dad sounds like he was an amazing man. And I definitely see like all of the drive that he instilled in you to do good for other people. It's really cool seeing how someone can influence someone else in their family to just create even more of an impact. If you think about the ripple effect, your father impacted so many people, and then his impact on you directly impacts all the people that you have an impact on. So how in your life are you looking to continue that ripple effect and maximize it so you can help as many people as you can, just as your dad did for you and so many others?
Yeah, I mean, I think when people describe my brand and even just meeting me in person, I think the number one thing that they say is like inspirational, And I think my goal is just to inspire more entrepreneurs, especially more female minority entrepreneurs, because there's just not many of us out there. And so if I can inspire another woman to believe in herself, to go all in on their passions, their dreams, and to build a company, build their own generational wealth, be independent. That's really the goal, is just to, and not only women, honestly. Most of my listeners on my podcast are actually male. So I'm influencing a lot of young men as well to just go after their dreams and to be their own boss And I think we're living in a really special time where so many of us can become creator entrepreneurs. We own our distribution. It's easier than ever to become an entrepreneur. And I just want to make sure that I'm inspiring people and giving them educational tools and interviewing amazing people who teach them how to become the best entrepreneurs they can be.
So let's dive into that a little bit because we hear so many people saying we live in this amazing time.
Mm-hmm.
You can start something, but on the other side of that, there's the people that are always giving you the quick fixes, saying, "Oh, this is how you earn money while you sleep in 2 weeks. This all you have to do
Mm-hmm.
is work 2 weeks." And I think a lot of young young people, especially, are seeing that and they're bouncing around different things. They want so much, they're so ambitious, and they don't know where to start because they keep bouncing around from these different things, putting their eggs in all these different baskets, and they're never really making any progress forward. It's this, uh, it's this mirage of progress when really it's stagnation behind it, if that makes sense. So let's say you went back and you were 18 again, and you had to lose all the skills that you've stacked over these years and you had all the resources of the current age. Where would you start? Where would you go? Where would you put your eggs? What basket would you put them in?
Yeah, such a great question. If I could go back to, so first of all, I partied way too much when I was younger. So if I could roll the time back, I would have gotten
Chris Brown,
more.
right?
Yeah, I did date Chris Brown when I was younger.
That's crazy.
But like if I could roll back the time a bit, I wouldn't have partied as much, right? However, that did all, like everything is a skill. So even though like maybe partying wasn't the best use of my time, I'm really social, I'm really outgoing, I'm really fun, I'm really young energy, and a lot of that is because I was like really fun when I was younger and like I still have that like fun energy, right? So even partying is a skill that I've stacked and that has helped me network and this and so on. So I don't regret anything. But if I was, 18 years old, starting all over again, I would 100% get into becoming some sort of an influencer, creating a personal brand, and being a content creator. As AI is taking over, the most people that are at risk, unfortunately, are young people who don't have skills. AI is going to essentially replace entry level jobs, and all the people that are already skilled, senior level people that are 35, 40, even 30, they're going to be directing these entry level AI workers, essentially agents. And there's not going to be entry level positions anymore, meaning that people aren't going to be able to acquire skills. So you're going to be left on your own to acquire skills. And the number one way to build a moat around yourself, whether it's AI or just competition in general, is to actually build your personal brand. And so my number one thing for anybody who's young would be to be doing exactly what you're doing, Jack. Starting some sort of podcast, YouTube channel, Instagram channel, TikTok channel, whatever it is, lean into one channel, get really good at it, master it, and then move on to the next channel, and just grow your personal brand because essentially that is your moat. And like I was mentioning before, we're living in this like amazing time period of creator entrepreneurship. The creator economy is going to grow 17 times bigger than it is in the next 2 to 3 years. Okay? So we are like, it's going to like accelerate like crazy. Like we think it's already at its height and everybody thinks there's too much competition and there's no room. That is not true. In the next 2 years, it's going to 17x. Okay? So it's not too late. And building your brand and becoming a creator is going to be the best way to diversify your income and to basically have control. Because once you have what I call an audience-based business, it doesn't matter what you can always change what you sell. You've got your core audience already built in and you can just adapt and pivot based on their needs. And you always have your customers. And that really is the future. And so I would say, I would be figuring out how to go viral, get that free distribution online, understanding the algorithms, figuring out long form content, understanding how to shoot video and doing all that kind of stuff if I was your age.
So where would school fit into that?
Yeah.
the classic, you go to school, you get a job, right? And I know you went to school, you dropped out, but then you went back to school. So
Yeah.
obviously you're not fully on the side of no school. At least you haven't been all your life.
Yeah, I mean, I think school is right for some people. I think that for me, I had parents that paid for my school. If I didn't, I don't know if I would go to school because have a lot of friends that are still in their 30s paying off their student loan debt, which is just
Yeah.
ridiculous, you know? And so I think it just depends. If you got parents that are going to pay for your school, then go for it because it gives you experience. You get to like have a little bit more fun. Like it's also important to have fun in your life and like live your life when you're younger. It's not just all about like hustle, 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 right? So it's like you get to like find yourself and another reason why school is good, especially if you go for like an MBA, at least in my experience, it was really a door opener. So I had basically worked at a radio station, interned, and once I was in my MBA, it opened the door to corporate because I got an MBA internship.
Hmm.
And internships can open the door to like a career. So like most corporations are not going to hire an intern that's not in college, right? So for me, I think the number one reason to go to school would be to get some sort of an internship in the field that you want. But nowadays, I think it's becoming less and less relevant. To be honest, I think college is becoming less and less relevant. And personally, I don't think I learned a thing about anything that I'm doing today from school. I didn't really learn much from school. It was more
Yeah.
like it was more hands-on learning on the internet.
Yeah, 100%. Um, what I found interesting in my just first, I guess, month and a half at school is you look at the business majors, and I'll try to talk to them because I mean, I do marketing for a clothing brand, I do my podcast. I'm like, oh, so what have you learned? And try to have a conversation. I'm like, oh, wow, they really are not learning anything. They're doing these PowerPoint presentations. Like, that's not what marketing has become in this day and age. It's really interesting how far education seems to lag behind where the industry's at.
Totally. And I remember, so like you said, I dropped out of school. And I was out of school for like 3 years, and then I went back and like for 1 year and got my MBA. And I remember when I started corporate, I was 27 years old, and I had never had a corporate job. Okay, and so
Hmm.
I thought, oh my god, I'm gonna be so behind. I'm gonna be so stupid. Like I had imposter syndrome. I went there, and I had built a blog and hacked Twitter, and I was like doing really cool stuff, but I just never worked a corporate job. I was light years ahead of everyone. I was so much better at video editing, at graphic design, at SEO, at building websites, at coding. I was so much better than everybody else, and I got promoted 5 times in 5 years, like within that company. And so it just goes to show, like institutional knowledge, whether it's college or a corporate job, it doesn't innovate fast enough. You just learn what everybody else knows, and the fastest way to learn is on the internet now. Everything's on like available to you. So I totally agree with you.
I'm quickly interrupting just to let you know how grateful I really am that you're here tuning into the Grateful Podcast, that you're a member of this community. It's amazing just how much we've grown in the past year. I'm a freshman in college. I've started this 10, 11 months ago, and we have 11,000 downloads. We have over 100 episodes, and I just want to keep that momentum going. So if you could help out with that by sharing this with someone that you think would really get value from it, leaving a review down below, or subscribing wherever you listen or watch, that would just mean the world to me. And send me a DM, a screenshot of you doing that on Instagram so I can personally thank you, because this community means so much to me, and it is amazing to watch it keep growing and keep impacting people's lives. All right, let's get back to the episode.
So, one interesting thing about your journey is you did something that I think you hear a lot about from some of the top creators, such as yourself, Alex Ramosi, and it's work for someone for free that knows more
Mm-hmm.
than you and gain experience from them. And you took it to an extreme. You did it for what, 8 years, where you were working for
Three
people
years.
at least
Yeah.
3 years, but then like your part-time job at Disney, where you were basically running something. Like overall, you were doing a lot of work that you weren't getting financially compensated for. But you
Mm-hmm.
learn so much and you're able to transfer those skills to everything you're doing right now. So how would you approach choosing where you'd want to invest your time? Because as a young person, I do think that's one of our greatest assets. Where would you invest your time to get the most ROI?
Yeah, I think it just depends on what your goals are. Like at every stage in my career, except maybe now, I've had some sort of mentor that I was doing something for free, you know? So for example, when I first started my company, Heather Monahan, who I was mentioning before, was my business mentor. She was the one that told me to start my company. She's the one that told me to quit my job. You know, I waited 6 months and was making over six figures a month with my agency before I quit my job at Disney, which was a full time. That was a regular job at Disney, right? It took me 6 months because I was so scared. And I remember her yelling at me she was in the grocery store yelling at me like, quit your job. And so then I did it and everything like took off because I listened to her and I quit my job. Then I was trying to grow my podcast. And have you heard of Jordan Harbinger?
I have, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So he's like OG podcasts. I've been doing my podcast for 7 years. He's been doing it for 12 years. So he's like OG podcast. And he's grown a really big show and he's known to know a lot about podcast growth. So there was a certain point in my journey where I wanted to grow my podcast. Heather couldn't help me. Heather figured out how to like get me to start my business, but Heather couldn't help me grow my podcast. She hadn't gone where I want to go. Like she hadn't grew her podcast that big. So I wanted to have Jordan Harbinger as my mentor and I like made it a thing. And so I invited him on my podcast. We had an interview. He kind of, you know, it was like just like this. He thought I was cute, good, you know, like in terms of like you're doing a great job. He had the same like impression of me, right? It's the same situation. And then the interview ended and I just kept sending him stuff. I would send him like, hey, like I figured out how to grow on Castbox, blah, blah, blah. I can get subscribers for 50 cents. Have you heard about this? And I would just like keep showing him like I'm doing all these experiments trying to grow my show until one day I was like, he basically asked me, he said, Hala, he's like, my scripter is sick or whatever. I'm really crappy at writing. I know you're like good at this kind of stuff. Can you write my ads for me? I didn't say how much. I was like, yeah, send it to me. I'll do it right now, you know? So he sent it to me. I did it for him. He was happy with it. And then I was like, hey, can we have a call? Like, I'd love to just like learn. And he's like, of course, like I'll teach you whatever you want. And then I literally would have like weekly calls where he would teach me everything he knew about growing podcasts. And I would teach him too. Like mentor and mentee relationships are both ways, right? So I would teach him the new way to do it. He would teach me how he's always done it, you know? And so suddenly I had this awesome mentor that was teaching me how to grow my audio podcast. And then now I'm doing the same thing, trying to learn from other YouTubers to grow my YouTube. And Jordan's not the right person for that. Who am I going to find to help me grow my YouTube, you know? So it just depends on your goals. And I think the big lessons in all of that is like, do things, just help other people. If you want somebody's help, help them. And they'll in return want to help you. It's the law of reciprocity.
Yeah, I think that when I think about getting things from other people, the most important thing is how can I provide value to them? And where that's hard with young people is we haven't gained as much experience to provide value. So people don't really know where to start. But I do think it takes a level of introspection to realize like where are my natural talents and where can I help people with their talents that they might be lacking in that exact area, because we do have natural talents. I think going back to the school system, one of the things that is difficult about it is we don't really capitalize on what we're naturally gifted at. We kind of try to build everyone up to be equal, how rounded out. Where I think what I've realized with this podcast is it gives me a lane to grow in the places that I'm excited to grow in the places that I'm naturally gifted at. And I think that's what a lot of young people should be doing, finding what they're naturally good at and focusing on that instead of trying to round out. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. And I'm sure you can, I'm sure you've gotten better. Like when you started this podcast 2 years ago, were you as good as you are today?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. But you stayed consistent. You put in your reps. You tried hard. And now you've got a top 100 podcaster on your show who's impressed with you and is like, okay, this is somebody who I would support. Meanwhile, to be honest, like I've been on other shows where they're double your age and I'm not impressed at all. And it has nothing to do with age. It's the effort and the consistency and like the passion and the time and the commitment, which all shows in the product. So when you're trying to get a mentor, you also need to do your own work. No, like, like for example, like Gary Vee is not going to mentor me. Like I haven't achieved what I need to achieve for Gary Vee to want to mentor me. You know what I mean? I need to keep building before I can get a mentor like Gary Vee. However, there's somebody who's between me and Gary Vee who would mentor me because I've achieved the level where they would want to take me under their wing. You know what I'm saying? So you also need to do the work to be sort of like worthy of being somebody's mentee as well.
I do think that at some point the word worth and worthy can be a little tricky.
Yeah, that's not the best word.
One of the big things that I've noticed, and the reason I started this podcast, is people like us, very ambitious people, feel some sort of delta between where they are and where they want to be that creates dissatisfaction in their life. They feel like they're not worthy of joy or gratitude because they haven't achieved the external version of themselves that they want to achieve. So I came up with this concept of the duality of gratitude and ambition, where you're grateful for where you are right now while still wanting to achieve more. It's pretty similar to manifestation, as I've learned more about that from guests I've had on the podcast and books. But I guess in your life, how have you felt that? Have you felt like at moments you've been so ambitious that you've lost joy for right now? And then have you been able to come back to something that you're grateful for right now that's pushing you toward growth in the future?
Yeah. A lot of this reminds me, have you ever heard of Benjamin Hardy's gap in the gain theory?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like, he talks about how a lot of people will compare themselves, especially when they're high achievers, right? You always have like the next goalpost, the next goalpost, the next goalpost, and you're always comparing yourself from where you are now to where you want to be. But he says you need to actually compare yourself to where you came from. So where you started to where you are now, and be more grateful. So when you're thinking about, how far you've come along, you're gain thinking. And when you're thinking about the other person that you're not, at their level yet, you're in a gap mindset. So you always want to be in a gain mindset where you're really just judging yourself based on where you've already gone and appreciating the fact that, like, you've gotten to where you've gone. Of course, I get into moments where I'm like, man, like that person started their podcast a year ago and they already blew up, or, oh, this person's beating me on the charts, or how do I not have, 100 million downloads yet, or whatever it is. Of course, there's moments where I feel that way. But I do, to your point, make sure that I always feel gratitude for like how long I've never missed. I think about the things that really matter. Like I've never missed an episode in 7 years. I've never, you know what I mean? Like I put out a new episode every single week, sometimes 2 episodes, a lot of the times 2 episodes every single week for over 7 years, nearly 8 years. I have a team of, 60 people all over the world, and I'm like feeding their families, so there's things that like I think about, like what are all the things that I feel like is actually matters, and the other things are vanity metrics, because I always just try to remind myself, like I'm already proud of, like, even if I accomplish nothing more, like I'm already proud of what I've accomplished, and like everything else is just like gravy, right? So it is very important to be grateful, and I do try to practice that.
So if everything else is just gravy, what's driving you to continue to grow and continue to get better?
Yeah. I would say back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of just wanting to inspire entrepreneurs, in terms of wanting to continue my father's legacy. And then honestly, I'm just obsessed with podcasting.
Yeah.
Like it's just fun. Like I'm not even doing it for the money anymore. It's fun. It's fun to grow my network. It's fun to put out offers. It's fun to launch courses. It's fun to host webinars. It's fun to have fans. It's fun. Like I'm having a lot of fun. And if my company becomes $100 million company or a $30 million company every year, it doesn't matter to me. It's the impact that I'm making. It's growing my team bigger. It's reaching more people. And to me, like what drives me honestly is that like I love my job. I have I just have so much fun doing it, and I love the feedback of helping other people and people learning from me, to be honest. So that's what drives me is just helping other people.
Yeah, and I think that definitely comes out in your content, and it's one reason that you have so many people that resonate so deeply. Like looking through your comment sections on episodes I watched preparing for this, there are so many people that just love your energy, and that's one of the things they comment on a lot. Like, I love Hala's energy, I love her vibe, and I think that is just the genuineness that people feel when watching it, that you're doing it because you're having fun, because you love it. And that's one of the most important things we can cultivate, because a lot of people, both of us know this, a lot of people getting into this game are doing it for the money. One of your posts it was one of the first of your posts I ever saw, I think. I had just started posting on LinkedIn, and you wrote about how everyone's using AI on LinkedIn. It was fascinating to me. I had been using AI to write my LinkedIn posts up to that point, and I haven't since, because it really reframed the values that we have and where we're creating content from, what place we're creating that content from. How do you continue to have this mindset of fun, this mindset of helping other people, when you probably have so many opportunities to sell out or to do it for other reasons?
Well, I think in terms of like selling out for money or things like that, I think once you've achieved a certain level of income, that at a certain point, like money is money, you know, like I can't buy and like I have a nice car, I have all the clothes I could want, so it's like, what is going to fulfill me? And what fulfills me now is like experimenting, is figuring out how to grow my YouTube, is just finding joy in learning new skills and accomplishing a goal, you know, and checking it off the list. Like that still drives me. Like I'm a very ambitious person, you know. And back to, I want to touch on the AI stuff that you were talking about, because it's really interesting. So one of that post specifically was about AI comments on LinkedIn. And so I've been an influencer on LinkedIn for like 7 years now. Since I started I started posting on LinkedIn when I launched my podcast. And I loved LinkedIn so much because it was a real community. People used to write paragraphs of comments. I used to have like, you know, long conversations in the DMs, and like everything was real. And I really loved the fact that LinkedIn was a real community, where other platforms like Instagram and stuff has a lot of bots and fake comments and so on. But LinkedIn was a real community. But now everyone's using AI to like auto generate all their comments. And so when I post, I get all these likes and comments, but I'm like, is this even real? Are these even real people? Everyone's saying like it feels so like fake. And it's really sad because it's real profiles and they're just like hooking up their stuff to AI. And I'm like, well, what is the point of all of this? Is our AIs are just talking to our AI, and like, who's getting value if that's the case, right? So I think there needs to be some sort of like reform on social media where like LinkedIn specifically like has to shut all that down, because I don't think it's bad to co-create with AI and write content. That's the future. You've got to co-create with AI. But to auto comment, it's like, what is the point of that? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a whole nother level. And the thing about podcasting that's really cool is, at least for now, there's no AI like hour-long deep fakes of people having conversations. Like, I don't see that being a place that's really going to get popular, right? And so podcasting, you're talking about how social media is going, or the creator economy is going to 13x in the next 3 years, I think
17x.
17x.
Yeah.
Podcasting, it's not as big, but I think it's predicted to 11x in the next 10 years, which is still like, that's
Amazing.
still pretty big.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's because it's not really an industry that we can replicate, that we can fake with AI. And I think that genuineness and that creativity that a lot of these conversations come down to is really the human trait that we crave more of.
Yeah. I think it all ties back to what we were talking about, creating a personal brand. Nowadays, the lines between podcaster and creator is like blurrier and blurrier. Podcasts are on, when people say they listen to my podcast, I'll be like, oh, where do you listen? They'll be like, Instagram. And I'm like, okay. So podcast doesn't mean audio only. You're on YouTube, you're on Instagram, you're on LinkedIn. Podcast and creator are becoming one and the same. And so it's all about building your personal brand and being a person as AI starts to take over.
Yeah. So a point that I want to touch on a little bit is your internal landscape. I know that you're big into, or you used to be very big into the law of attraction and manifestation, and you had some different points with that in your life. But I'm wondering how that's kind of influenced this part of your life since you've started your business, and where it is now that a lot of your goals that you originally had are achieved, and how that has evolved in your life.
This is a good question. So law of attraction to me is something that I was really into when I was like 19 years old. And I remember up until that point, I was like a very average girl, like average in school, average in everything other than like I was a really good singer. So like I was above average in singing and average in everything else. But I basically got obsessed with the law of attraction, and I would tell myself I'm like so confident, I'm so pretty, everybody loves me, and then I remember getting like an amazing job at Hot 97. I started hanging out with celebrities, dating celebrities, got big on Twitter, like all these things started happening because I grew like such extreme confidence in myself. And over the years, that has like wavered and unwavered. But my positivity and my belief that like the world is abundant and I can achieve my dreams has never went away. Like I'm really like quick to just take action and start something. And I have like zero hesitation about like if it's going to work, if it's not going to work. And I have so many examples of this. And there's been so many times where I've like spoken something into existence and then it's just organically happened. So, for example, when I started my podcast 7 years ago, people used to ask me, Hala, why are you doing, like, because I had a great corporate job, whatever, be like, why are you doing this? This is before podcasting is what it is now. People didn't understand, like, what is even a podcast? Like, why are you doing this, right? And I'd be like, I'm going to have the #1 podcast network in the world, is what I would say. I didn't even know what a podcast network was. I didn't even know networks are supposed to grow and monetize podcasts. Like I literally had no idea what I was saying. I had no idea what it meant. 5 years later, I have a top self-improvement podcast network. I grow and monetize. All the people I used to look up to are in my podcast network. That just happened organically. Mm-hmm. I didn't even try. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but like, it just happened. It just happened. Like it's like everything. And one day I had, it was like 2022. I had COVID and it was Christmas break. And I remember it was like, I couldn't see anybody on Christmas because I had COVID, and back to like this COVID starting all my businesses. And I remember having this idea. I'm going to start the YAP Media. I called it the YAP Media Collective. And I was like, I'm going to recruit all these podcasters and like start getting them ads or whatever. And then like that was the precursor of my network. And then suddenly I had the YAP Media Network, and I just built it brick by brick until I had one, And so it's just little things like that, like speaking things into an existence and then taking action and following your gut. So basically I feel like I get downloads from the universe. And what I try to do is I try to follow my gut instinct, especially when it comes to business, because I feel like almost everything I've ever done is like I just had the idea and I thought it through. It's not like I just have an idea and I just, don't even think it through. But I have an idea and I just execute. I don't overthink. I just start doing. And that could be as simple as putting a PowerPoint together about it. Or sending out a bunch of emails or whatever I need to do to kickstart whatever I want to do. So now I've got this new download that I need to basically transition my podcast network into a simulcast network where we already sell video ads and things like this, but a lot of the podcasters that I represent are really big on audio and they don't know how to do their video. So I'm going to take everything that I've learned from myself growing my YouTube and I'm going to just do it for them. I'm not going to charge them or anything. I'm just going to literally grow their YouTube channels and double the size of my network. And so like that's the thing that I'm focusing on now. And like I often get these sort of like ideas and I just go for it, you know? So I feel like law of attraction is, and I remember I think David Meltzer taught me this. It's the law of GOYA, get off your ass. You know, it's like you've got to pair law of attraction and like manifesting, which is essentially just saying your goals out loud so you believe them, right? That's what I believe law of attraction is saying your goals out loud so you yourself believe it, right? And then doing something about it, you know? So that's what I believe.
Yeah. That's awesome that David taught you that. I actually had him as a guest on my show a month and a half ago or so.
I love that.
He's an amazing person.
Great guy.
Yeah, just the belief that you can achieve what you say you will. And looking at your story, it seems like you really had that instilled in you from a young age. Your dad achieved the so-called unachievable, and so it seems like he raised his kids with a mindset of you can do whatever, and you really did believe that. I've been lucky enough where my parents, I think I've definitely felt that, not as much in a monetary sense, but in a internal like joy sense where I've always felt entitled to being grateful for what I have and to being joyful no matter my external circumstances. And I think being raised in that mindset is probably the most powerful thing you can have for your life.
Totally, because what's the opposite of that? Being a victim, right?
Yeah.
So if you always walk around life feeling like a victim, playing the victim, you're just playing as small as you possibly can. You know, nothing is going to come to you because you're closed off from all the goodness in the world because your energy is a victim, you know, and that's playing as small as you can.
Yeah, 100%. So, Hala, I'm so grateful for the interview that we've had today, the time today. I know I've learned a ton. I hope the people listening and watching have learned a ton. Where can my audience find you?
Thank you, Jack. If you guys want to tune in to Young and Profiting Podcast, it is for entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. I've interviewed some of the greatest entrepreneurs in the world, from Alex Ramosi to Damon John to Gary Vee and Grant Cardone. So if you want some entrepreneurship content, go check that out.
Awesome. I'll link it down below. Thank you so much, Hala.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Grateful Podcast with Jack Wagoner. I'm just so happy that you made it this far, got value out of this. And do me a favor, take a screenshot of where you're at right now and tag me on Instagram in your story, and I'll repost it. And thank you personally, because it really is amazing that you took this time out of your day to cultivate more joy into your life and learn more and improve yourself. And if you think that anyone else in your life could get benefit from this, make sure to send it over to them so that we can keep making more impact on more people's lives. Now, if you enjoyed this, I release episodes every Wednesday with an amazing guest. And my goal is to keep getting these guests to be even more amazing. Not that the ones we've had aren't, but just even more amazing and make a bigger impact on you guys. So if you want to help me do that, then leaving a review wherever you listen is huge. All right. Hope you guys have a great week. I'll see you on Wednesday for the next episodes of the Grateful Podcast. Stay grateful.